Thank you all for joining us for Herbert's Career Fair Prep Week, specifically our What to Expect Wednesday panel. We are very excited to have all of you here with us to help us prepare our students for our career fair that is tomorrow. For the questions today, I will say a name before so we don't have that awkward pause of who's gonna go next. But for the questions that I have, I'd like each of you to answer those. So we'll go ahead and get started. Nick, if you want to start by introducing yourself and giving us a brief overview of your role.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Nick Lawrence. I'm a project executive with the Chrisman Company here in Knoxville. We're general. I help manage our operations department, help in pre-construction and pre-planning phases of construction projects all the way through closeout, help maintain resources, again, our operations department, and really focus on client and subcontractor relationships.
Awesome. Glad to have you here. Deanna, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Deanna Jones. I'm Deputy Director of Office of Talent Management with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, also known as TDEC. So if you hear me say TDEC, that's our acronym. In my role, what I do is I work with our senior leadership team on managing and helping develop our most important asset, our people. And what I do in that role is with our employees, I do training and development, career coaching, helping them with their resume, interviewing. I do leadership development, I do recruitment. I'm over our internship program. I'm responsible for working with the colleges and establishing. I do succession planning, and then I do leadership development meetings. So I'm responsible for developing our team.
Nice to have you, Deanna. Scott,
Thank you.
Go?
Yeah, I'm Scott Bohannon, and I'm the Training and Education Specialist for Tennessee Farmers Cooperative. Basically, we represent all the co-ops across the state and our surrounding states. But basically, a lot of what my role is sounds a lot kind of like what Deanna does. But I help write, refine, and create some training materials for our online training library, for other training events that we have in person. I also recruit students for our internship program. And then a lot of college graduates that we bring on into the co-op system end up coming on to what's called our cooperative training program. So I work real close with those programs and kind of mentoring those students to kind of help them along through those. And then co-ops also made me their unofficial videographer. So I do a lot of video work for our communications department.
Awesome. Nice to have you, Scott. So we'll go ahead and ask the next question here. What do you see as the main difference between an in-person and a virtual career fair? And I'll have Nick go first for this one as well.
Sure, I love going first. I think the virtual career fair it's a little less personable, and I think it puts an increased emphasis on your verbal communication skills and really your preparation. You've got to come with some good questions and something that is thought-provoking, and hopefully that you know something about the company that you're interviewing with to ask an in-depth question.
Awesome, thank you. Deanna?
Okay, well, what I've noticed about our virtual world is it tends to be a little bit more casual because we are virtual and people are typically doing this from their home offices. But even though it's virtual, students and all of us need to treat this just as we would if we were in person. I think that's my biggest suggestion, is treat it as if we were in person. And I think technology can be a barrier with these virtual meetings and one-on-one chats, but it is possible to connect successfully with someone virtually. We just need to prepare and set our stage. So.
And Scott?
Yeah, I 100% agree. The more you can prepare for this career fair over any others, I think is going to be the key here. One of my favorite parts about always going to the career fairs is walking around all the booths and grabbing all the materials off of the booth so I can sit there and look at them, learn more about the company. And we're not going to be able to have that this year. So I think it's important for students to know, like, hey, we need to research these companies. figure out what our questions are, because we're not going to have those supplemental materials that may spark a question there. So I definitely think that would be one of the biggest things that you can do. And then also, you can't hand us your resume by hand, so definitely follow up. I think that would be key here to make sure that you really break this screen and kind of have that one-on-one interaction.
Yeah, and we've also had some students in previous career fairs share their resume on a Google Doc. So they'll have the link and then they can just drop that in the chat. So that's another way to share your resume with an employer if you want to do it right there in that setting. Our next question is kind of following up with that. How can a student stand out in a virtual job fair environment? And we'll just keep going in this same order. So if Nick, you want to start.
Absolutely. I think you can't expound enough on being prepared. I think you should come look at an in-person interview or career fair. I think that you should show some passion and energy. Don't be afraid to share and know your experiences, whether it be in volunteering. Maybe you do have some related experience in construction of the field you're pursuing, but just don't be afraid to show some passion and know your little 2-minute elevator speech up front of who you are, and be proud of it, and again, show some energy.
Awesome. Deanna?
Well, I'm going to echo what Nick is saying. I mean, I think the most important thing virtually is, well, even in person, is be prepared. Really, that, and look professional. I know in a virtual world, we need to look professional from the waist up, but make sure you look professional, because we are able to see what you've got on. And as Nick and Scott said, do your research about the company before you come in. Show that you've taken an interest in that company, and set your stage. Be prepared. Look good. Look professional, and have your questions ready.
Awesome. Scott?
Yeah, I don't really know how much I can add for this question, but definitely, I think any student that might be freaking about how to prepare for a virtual career fair should prepare for it the same way that they would a regular in-person career fair. I think that's just the simplest answer. Make sure that those resumes are fresh and free from any proof and errors. Be sure to conversate with the person while you're there, ask questions, do your research, all good things.
Yeah, so it sounds like just getting prepared and research is super, super important for our students. So our next question is, what is your advice for a student who may end up having technical issues when they're trying to access an employer session? And Nick, do you want to go?
I'd be glad to. I think I would just encourage students just to remain calm. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. I've done a few of these virtual career fairs already, and it's going to happen. Don't flake out or just ignore it. Reach out to the employer, send whoever the contact is in Handshake for that employer. Send them an email and say, hey, had a problem, would love to connect. And I would just about bet that the majority of the employers that are represented will reach out and connect with you at a later time.
Okay. Deanna?
Yeah, I'm glad Nick is breaking the ice on all these questions, so we can just kind of echo. So thanks, Nick. I'm going to basically, once again, echo what he says, is don't get frazzled or frustrated. Just let us know that you're having technical issues, and Nick's right. A majority of us will connect later with you. So, just let us know. Or if you're late getting on the one-on-one chat, just say, hey, I was having technical difficulties, I'm sorry. And we understand, because we have them too on our sides. So, just let us know what's going on, and we'll typically set up a time with you later.
Awesome. And Scott, sorry, you'll go last. We can switch it up so you can go first.
Oh, no, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, definitely. I will say to this question, tomorrow will be our first virtual career fair as far as co-op coming to recruit. And me and my boss spent 4 hours on Monday trying to make sure all our video and audio was set and ready to roll. So definitely, students realize, all these employers, they're not used to these virtual meetings, probably not, unless they've already been doing it or working from home. So we're learning just as much as you are. So we're excited to get in there. I think kind of what Deanna said, a lot of these recruiters are willing to talk to you if you do have technical issues. A lot of us, this is our primary job responsibility, is to come to these career fairs and connect with students. So you sending us an email is not going to be inconvenience for us. We'd be more than happy to tell you about the opportunities we got at our company, and to be able to share anything through email if we have to, or if we want to set up another meeting, or if you want to set up a personal Zoom call. I'm sure a lot of employers would actually be willing to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. And just to say what we're doing to kind of help mitigate this issue as well, we have a student Zoom room that will be live on the day of the career fair. And so if you are having constant technical issues, like dropping in and letting us know so we can get the sessions that you've missed based on, something going wrong with your computer. And like Nick said, we can pass that information along to the employer, but you should also follow up with that employer that you were going to meet with and just let them know, hey, technical issues, what can we do to meet? Because we've actually met with some students in the Zoom room who they emailed immediately and was able to get a phone call right then instead of, a Zoom. They're like, okay, well, we'll just call you for this 10-minute one-on-one. So that's super important. Our next question is, how can a student maximize the 10 minutes that they have in the one-on-one session using the Handshake platform? And we can switch up the order, but it sounds like everybody likes it, so we'll start with Nick.
Okay, I think, again, they should have their 2-minute elevator speech. We use that in the professional world to sell ourselves, our services, our companies. So I would encourage all the students to develop an elevator speech and just come ready to talk. Make sure that you convey, don't rely too much on your resume to convey your work history, be able to share that really quickly. Talk about your career aspirations if you know them. And I would encourage, again, students to ask in-depth questions about the internship program, what the structure looks like, and really be inquisitive of what kind of advantage or benefit they're going to get out of the internship.
Awesome. Deanna?
Yeah, once again, echoing Nick, yes, be prepared. Do your research about that employer. We don't expect you to be an expert about our organization, but we do like to know that the student took initiative to learn who we are and what type of opportunities and what we do. And once you have us, we're focused 100% on you. So you want to put your, best foot forward with us at that time. Talk about yourself, what your aspiration is, what you want to do. If there's a specific job or internship, ask us questions about that. I'm going to kind of flip this around. One of the worst things a student can do when they get on a one-on-one with us is say, I don't know anything about TDEC. Tell me what TDEC is about. Because we're so big and do so many things, we can monopolize the whole conversation, and we don't want to do that. We want the student to talk to us, and so that's my advice. Don't do that. Don't get on the call and say, I don't know anything about TDEC. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Scott?
Yeah, I definitely think these one-on-ones are going to be more student-led than they are employer-led. Those group sessions, I think that's where the employers are going to kind of take the initiative to kind of direct the conversation and where it's going. But these one-on-ones, this is your chance to be able to tell us who you are, give us a little bit about yourself. And I'd say definitely try, I'm not saying go over, definitely get it right on the 10 minutes, but I think the closer to 10 minutes you can use, just to kind of use that time wisely to be able to really understand, hey, are you a match for our company? Are we a match for you? How does that work out? And I think that would be definitely something that you would want to do, is definitely try to use those 10 minutes to really conversate and learn as much as you can in that time.
Awesome. And I'm kind of going to go a little rogue here. This wasn't a planned question, but you all have mentioned having an introduction or an elevator pitch, if you will, when you're coming into that session. What do you recommend students include in that introduction? What do you like to see? We'll have whoever wants to go for this one.
I would say that you want to convey leadership skills, or again, elaborate or expand upon any past relatable experiences. We understand that you've not worked in our field and that you're not going to have firsthand expertise, but whether it be Eagle Scouts or working on a community project with your church, a mission trip, there are so many relatable experiences that translate into so many different fields, I would encourage them to just convey where they're from, why they chose the major that they chose, and just, any leadership or community service.
Awesome. Does anyone have anything else to add to that?
Well, one of the things when they do come on, in addition to what Nick was saying, is why they're interested in TDEC. Tell us why you are interested in talking to us, and if possible, tell us what you want to learn about TDEC in this one-on-one. Really capitalize on that opportunity. But I also want to know about your passion as well.
Thank you so much. Do you have anything to add, Scott?
Yeah, exactly what Deanna said. I think our biggest thing is we really want to know what you want to do. Like, I think a lot of students come into career fairs and they're so excited to get this job, any job. They don't really care what it is. But like, we want to make sure that you enjoy what you do. So I think, taking time to really kind of establish where your passion lies and what you want to do with your career, 10, 20 years down the road, like really think about that and see if you can do a little bit of that in the companies that you're interviewing for to be able to go on. And I think by putting that into your introduction, you're able to help that employer make a connection on whether or not you might be a good fit.
Awesome. Yeah, so our next question Scott alluded to it in his previous answer, but what can a student expect in a group session in the Handshake virtual platform? And if Nick wants to go first for this one.
Sure, I've only experienced the group session once. It's probably going to be information overload about a company, whoever's speaking. When I did it, I tried to queue up some questions to prompt people to make you have a quick, unplanned response just to see who's engaged. And we'll take note of who's engaged for sure. So that's my little piece of advice. Just pay attention and take a break for a minute and soak it in.
Awesome. Deanna?
Yeah, in the group discussions, it's typically on our side and the TDEC side, it's big picture. We're coming in, we're presenting what TDEC does for the state and protecting the citizens and the environment. So we're talking big picture. We'll also talk about different types of employment opportunities, type of degrees. If someone wants to apply for an employment opportunity or a job, we're giving big picture. Sometimes we'll actually have a presentation. It'll depend on the virtual platform and what we're capable of doing. Some platforms will lend it to that to give us the opportunity to do that, some won't. But we're typically talking big picture about what we do and how we impact the state of Tennessee.
And Scott?
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to spend a little bit of time as far as telling you about our company, the career opportunities that we've got, but we're also not going to spend the whole 30 minutes talking about ourselves. So I think it's important to realize, even if you do join one of those, don't just sit in the back, use the chat box, raise your hand in the platform. If you have questions, ask. We'd be more than happy to explain anything that you have questions about. Because chances are, if you have a question, somebody else is probably thinking it. They're probably just a little too scared to ask. So definitely, be willing to conversate in those group sessions as well, because that's just as good of an opportunity to be able to showcase yourself, I think, as the one-on-ones. It's just going to have more people in it.
Awesome. That's great advice. So our next question is, what steps do you think are the most important for a student to prepare for the virtual job fair? And you all have talked a little bit about doing research, so maybe in this answer try to go in a little bit more detail about what research and what things that students should be looking for. And Nick, if you want to start.
Sure. So again, like it was said earlier, you don't need to be an expert about our company, but just ask, what market sectors do we serve? Do we have a particular niche? There's some good general questions that you can ask without having to recite or memorize a company's history, because I get it. I'm an alum of the program, proud alum, and you're not going to know. There's so many companies represented. You're going to do good just to take a morsel from each one that you talk to. So I think that's it in a nutshell. Just ask something that's relevant and that shows that maybe you look at their website and know geographically where they're at, or something about their company culture or structure.
Awesome. And Deanna?
Yeah, once again, show that you've looked at our website. Like I said earlier, you don't need to be an expert about what we do, but show that you've taken some initiative, that you have a high-level overview. Perhaps even look at our social media presence. In our case, we have we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. Look at our LinkedIn profile, especially if you're interested in seeking an employment opportunity. Look at what job postings are out there, what our requirements are, and then you could ask specific questions about those type of employment opportunities. And the same for internships. Look at what we're advertising for interns, and then have really targeted questions about those employment opportunities, or if that's what you're interested in at that time, if you're seeking an employment. But I would just say, show us that you've done a little bit of research and have specific targeted questions that you really want to know about the organization.
And Scott?
Yeah, I'll go a little bit different route with this question, I guess.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the research, in my opinion, going back to a little bit more research about yourself and your interest. I can't tell you how many ag business students, for example, come into a career fair and they're like, oh, well, I want to work for an ag business. And I'm just like, okay, that's great. Do you want to do marketing? Are you more of a numbers guy? Do you want to crunch numbers? Do you want to work in HR? Like, is training and education your thing? In an ag business, there's so many different things that go on. So really find those interests. And then another one, I guess, specifically for co-op, because we recruit for co-ops all across the state. So when we get a student come up to our booth and we ask them where they would like to be located and we get an answer saying anywhere, well, that's fine and dandy. But what we found is that those students who are willing to be placed anywhere, and then we take them far away from their home or far away from their family, maybe they last a year and then they're looking for closer job opportunities that are closer to home. So definitely think about where you want to work and where you want to live, where you want to start to build your life. I mean, you're starting your career. So definitely think about that, and don't be afraid to tell an employer like, well, I would rather work closer to home, because that company may not be a good fit.
Yeah, so it sounds like students just need to be mindful of the experience that they've had and reflect on that, and then also kind of thinking about how that relates to the company and have those questions that are specific to them. So lots of work beforehand in this virtual job fair experience. So our last question is, what about after a virtual job fair? Should a student follow up? What is an employer expecting of a student after that career fair? And we'll have Nick go first again.
Sure, glad to. Well, I think the student should always follow up. If they're interested in doing an internship at the end of your 10-minute segment or whatever it is, ask the question, hey, would you be available to talk further in the future? Could I contact you later today or tomorrow? Don't be afraid to ask that question, especially if you're very interested. That type of initiative could put you at the top of the callback list if you showed a lot of initiative and interest in the company or position.
Deanna? Sorry, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
One last thing I would just add, that to ask what do the next steps look like for you as an employer, because it may be different. Scott may want the resume now. We may want you to go online. Some companies will direct you online to apply online with a more formal process or something. So just ask. Everyone may have a little different approach.
Yeah, that's good advice. Deanna?
I agreed. I love it when the students email me afterwards saying, hey, thank you for talking to me. And if you can, jot down while you're talking to that employer, jot down something specific that you talked to them about, and maybe state that in your email, because sometimes that will trigger, oh, I do remember this conversation. So if you can, you don't need to, but a lot of students do that with me. And like Nick said, what is the next step? Ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. Ask it. A lot of students in particular who aren't ready to graduate, they ask me to introduce them to a manager that they want to network with. And that's okay. Ask me to introduce them so they can network with someone within our organization, or job shadow. We do a lot of job shadowing. So they need to follow up and let me know how and what, and what are our next steps. And we're more than willing to work with the students.
And Scott?
Yes, I think, you should always follow up. I think even if you're not interested in the company, just that genuine thank you, whether it's an email or anything like that, definitely send something, just because it makes the employer feel like they didn't waste their time at a career fair or anything like that. Following up is probably the most important. Now, if it's a company you're super interested in, call me old fashioned, but if a student was to write me a handwritten note saying and expressing those things that Deanna was talking about, things that we talked about, things like that, I'm going to be like, whoa, this candidate is super serious. Like, they're definitely on fire for the company, something they're really interested in. That's going to put me a little more time to look at your resume and to be able to think, wow, they're serious. And if you don't want to go that route, even if the employer doesn't ask for it, a cover letter might be a good option, something a little more professional to be able to showcase those skills that maybe you forgot to tell us about in the meeting, things along that line. But yes, always follow up. I think that's one of the most important steps that a lot of times students tend to forget. And also make sure that you proof your follow-up, proof your emails before you send them, proof those resumes, because, those little minuscule things that we don't often catch, sometimes those can be the things that kind of separate us from a maybe to like probably not. So definitely follow up.
Yeah, so it sounds like students need to make sure they definitely follow up with the companies they're interested in, but also just sending a general thank you to the people that they meet with, and they probably should write down who they're meeting with and something that they remember from that session, just to make sure that it's not just a blanket thank you with no information in it that would really remind them of who you are. But that's really all the questions that we have. But does anyone who is joining us live have any questions? You can unmute and ask the question, or you can just send it in the chat. Either way is fine. If not, it's totally okay. All right. Well, do our panelists have anything else that they want to add or say about the upcoming virtual fair that is tomorrow? No? Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate employers who are willing to help our students get ready for this career fair in general, but especially with this virtual environment that we're in this semester. So we really appreciate it.